Well, good morning, everybody. I thought I'd take a few minutes today and talk about getting a winch for the Bronco. The factory winch has an accessory that comes out here on the front. It's a good looking winch. I think it's a worn model. We'll take a look at that and show you that here in a minute. But I've decided that I want a hidden winch, something tucked down and underneath. And so I've gone ahead and purchased a rough country kit. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about it. It hides the winch underneath. We're going to go ahead and install that today. I hope you'll enjoy the ride. And let me tell you one little secret. I've already done the installation. I'm just finishing the project. Ride along with me and see how you too can put a winch on your Bronco for less than $1,000. Let's get started. Well, when I took a look at ordering the Bronco on the online website, I discovered that the worn winch and the winch mounting kit was $3,500. And I thought, boy, that seems like an awful lot for that. The modular bumper that you see in this picture comes with the package, along with the factory skid plate right down here. So really the two things that you're getting with this are the winch itself and this mounting component here with a little teeny bit of a little mini bull bar. I thought, well, geez, I wonder what all of that really costs. So I took a quick look, and this is the winch that I think is most closely aligned to the one shown at the Ford thing. The specs seem to match up, and so it's about $756, $800 probably kind of retail. So if you go back to this, so $800 of this is the winch, meaning that, you know, more than $2,600 for this accessory. That just seemed like an awful lot for it. So I did not order the factory winch with my Bronco, figuring that I would find an aftermarket solution. Well, I found an aftermarket solution. It wasn't quite dialed into my model. I found a rough country package right here that included the winch and the mounting tray and all of the hardware and a replacement skid plate. We'll get to that in just a second. All for around $755. I thought, well, that's fantastic. That's a much, much better deal, and I'm willing to do some work, and let's see what that might look like. So here's a picture of it. But what I noticed and what they do mention here is that this is not the modular bumper that came with my vehicle. This is a different bumper option from Ford. And so this kit, specifically this skid plate, is designed for a bumper setup and a tow hook setup that is not what the Ford Bronco Badlands edition has. But, you know, it's pretty good looking. I thought it had a nice appeal to it. I like the hidden aspect of the winch. There's certainly nothing wrong with having a front-mounted winch. That looks cool too, but I happen to like the hidden winch. And so what I noticed, if we scroll down, is that Rough Country in almost every instance provides the instructions. The instruction sheet is a download. And so I downloaded that instruction sheet and really took a close look at it to figure out, could I adapt this kit to my vehicle? Did I have enough space in the Badlands edition for all the important stuff? And I determined that I probably did, and that the risk was worth it. And so I went ahead and ordered that and received it a little while ago, and we're going to go to work mounting this inside of my Ford Bronco Badlands. Well, let's get started and talk about the tools and parts we're going to be using today. Tool-wise, I've got my Sawzall there in the case. We'll be doing a few modifications to the underside of this Bronco. I'll show you in a minute. We've got our wrenches, our sockets, our good old electric wrench, a flashlight. I've purchased a Rough Country package here, and I want to describe a little bit what we're looking at. So the most important part for me was this winch bracket that will support our winch and hide it up and under the truck. We'll look at that in just a minute. This skid plate right here came with the kit, but it is not designed for the Ford Bronco Badlands edition with the modular bumper. So I knew that going in. I knew that that particular part wasn't necessarily going to be useful, but I hope to harvest this part right here. Let me get around the other side, or look at it and just go around the other side here. I hope to harvest some of the metal around where the fair lead will be installed and use that to create the fair lead opening in the factory skid plate that is on my particular model right down here. So right in here, we're going to look to mount the fair lead. It's going to depend a little bit on where the cooler, transmission cooler and intercooler go as far down, but we know it'll work. We just need to figure out exactly where in this skid plate to mount that fair lead. Other than that, this should go together fairly well. There is the possibility that this skid plate doesn't bend in the right way to make space up behind there. Let's take a look at the space we're working with and see what we're gonna need to fight with. Okay, we're gonna take a look above the skid plate and look at the area where we're gonna be mounting this winch. And you can see inside of here, there's quite a bit of space. We're going to be removing these frame extenders for accessories that aren't installed. And that bracket is going to ultimately hang up on these supports right up here on the inside of that and extend to the other side. So we're going to be getting, I think, some pretty good space there. It looks like we'll be able to get that fit in there without having to modify the existing skid plate, with the exception of cutting a hole for the fair lead. And as you can see, the cooler, intercooler and transmission cooler come down pretty close up there. So we'll find a spot for that though. It'll work out. So we'll go ahead and start taking some things apart. We've got the skid plate removed from the bottom with the 4 bolts that we took out right there. Let's take a look at what we have. So we're going to be putting our winch right in this area right here. And so we're going to need to cut off this extender, that extender, and I think we need to trim off a little of this plate with our Sawzall to get a flush mount so that the shelf that we're going to be putting that winch on can fit right tight up against that frame member right there. So yeah, that's going to be fun. I hope that the Sawzall cut is easy to do, otherwise we'll be here all day. So let's get started. Okay, before I go any farther, I just wanted to point out that I did take the time after cutting away the 2 support brackets and the metal lip of this mounting bracket. Per the instructions, I did use some rust proofing paint to make sure that I covered all of that. I'll probably give it a second coat here in a minute. In the meantime, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to disconnect these brackets that hold the stock skid plate onto the vehicle. I'm going to take those off. I've got some spacers to go right here to bring that bracket down a teeny bit, because the winch mount will be sitting flush right here on this on this support member right there, and it will cause this to go down too. So we're just going to make an adjustment so that everything fits given the space. So that's the next step that we'll be working on right now. Okay, we got that bracket off right here. We're going to go ahead and put the spacer on here and then put the bracket back on. Well, actually, we're going to do the, we're going to leave that off for a minute because we need to put the winch shelf onto the, into place. So we're going to do that first. So I'll take the other bracket off. I don't think that's going to fall. And then we'll get the winch shelf up. Put the winch on it first, of course. Okay, now we want to push this back as far as we can. We're going to tighten these up a little bit later, but we'll get them dialed in for right now. These are probably exactly. Okay, so where's my... Try to get that to drop down a little bit using gravity, just because when you put some pressure on it, it's going to want to come. Okay, so now we have that. We're ready to put this into the vehicle. And so it's heavy. Yeah, that's heavy. Okay. We've got the spacer in the bracket right here below the rubber piece. That's about the same thickness as the mounting plate for the winch. As you can see, the winch is on the mounting plate. Okay, I've got a jack stand to this side holding this, and we're just kind of hand tightening for right now just to get everything lined up. Make sure that this intercooler goes up in the right place. We'll do the other side. Okay, now what we need to do is we need to stick into this slot back here. Let me get the camera, sorry. Into this slot right there, this bolt that's got a welded tab that'll help us position it. And that's going to go back behind there and allow us to put a nut, or actually a bolt, sorry. This is the welded nut. We're going to put the bolt through here, through that hole that will then go in and mount to this. So we'll get that done on both sides before we lift it up any higher. Okay, you can see we've got those bolts with the tabs back in there. Now we'll be able to lift this up and get those back mounting bolts aligned so we can get that in place. And then we'll finish getting these brackets remounted. And then we'll see how the factory skid plate does. All right, let's get that done. Well, it's getting late, getting dark here in the north, but you'll see that I finally was able to get these tabs bent in such a way that I was able to get the bolts to go through the frame. So that's the back of the winch pan. You see, there it is right there. We've got the spacers in. We've got these brackets back in place that hold this up and also mount the skid plate. So we'll get that reconnected. I'm going to put that back together tonight. And tomorrow we'll get the fair lead location here determined so that we stay below the intercooler. And then we'll unbundle all of that and get it wired up. That'll be tomorrow's project. So we'll put that skid plate back on for tonight. It looks like it's going to work because I look at this angle of the skid plate right here. It looks promising. It may not, we'll have to see, but it looks like it might work. So if not, we'll maybe put a washer in it or something just to space that out just a little bit to go right around the curve of that plate. All right, guys, we've temporarily put in the original factory skid plate. I haven't tightened it all the way up yet because I need to make that fair lead cut right there. But you can see with the gap pushed down, there's now a gap that wasn't there before. I mean, it's so close. So close. You know, I didn't need any spacers. That worked out fine. It's right tight against the tray, and the tray is tight against the frame, but it all's tucked up in there. It's just a function of some final adjustments.